People who are most successful are the ones who don't just give up.
Hey, how good are these to-go boxes?
Our to-go boxes, they're not good. They're f***ing amazing. How did we get started here at Albemarle Paper? Well, late 2008, my cousin John and I started this paper company, and we got all sorts of different products.
Hey, Nick, come on, man. Let's get to work.
You got cleaning products, too? You got a party this weekend? We got your back. Anything you need here at APS. Plates, napkins, silverware, table covers. We got everything covered, right, boys? What other items do we carry? Paper towels? I got it. Toilet paper? I got it. Gloves? We got you. Pizza boxes? You're probably wondering, where are we? Where's Albemarle Paper? Don't you worry about that. We got you. I'll bring the product to your front door. See you guys.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MLS Corner, the best corner in all of MLS. We have a jam-packed show today. After a bye week of Charlotte FC, no footy for the crown this weekend. We are back in action this week with not one, but two games, and we've got a jam-packed out crew with us tonight. I've got my man Brian. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Ready to talk some ball. I'm expecting a big week this week, so I'm ready to talk about it.
Let's go. Expecting a big week. And somebody with a big shirt tonight. We got my man David Palma from the Yeti Clan. How are you tonight?
Doing great. You know, it's always a good time over here at the MLS Corner with Top Ben 90.
Nice.
Appreciate you having me back.
For sure. I love that you're paying the respects to the man Brant Veronica.
You already know. Shout out to our boy Brent. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Brent.
Nice. Shout out to Brant. It's his birthday today. And then we have I would say this is like your second or third, probably like your third appearance, I think.
Yeah, my third.
Right. I got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Voss from Soccer Sub Podcast, who one of the shows, I remember he did it during his break at work one time. So mad respect for my man Voss. They're doing some great stuff over there at Soccer Subs. How are you, my man?
Oh, guys, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on again. I think it's my third time on, and I think it's my first time that I'm actually not at work. Because every time I was recording, behind a fireplace and stuff, wearing, the whole black getup. So it feels good to actually have something to stand out a little more. And I'm looking forward to a great show. We got a lot to talk about.
We sure do, man. I also wanted to say your man Ronnie, this man, who has he not met? Every time I look at his Instagram profile, he's met somebody else. So I thought he was with Chris Paul and taking him. I'm like, bro, who have you not met?
Yeah, he was actually telling me today because we had a little interview for the podcast earlier, and he was like, yo, before we even do that, I got to go meet Chris Paul. I'm like, what, you going to go meet Chris Paul? Like, how do you casually just drop that? Like, what is that? What do you do? Like, even I'm surprised, or I'm still guessing what Ronnie actually does. I feel like he's like an agent in disguise.
Nice. Awesome. So like the weekend coming up, we got a star-studded cast here tonight. And as we get started, I first want to talk, since we last MLS Corner, we talked about the game that we played. I can't even remember who we played. Who did we play?
Seattle,
yeah. That draw against Seattle. It's been so long ago, bro.
You know what?
That was like one of the craziest games, too.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest games. It just shows you how good my memory is. But anyways, tonight I want to start off by talking about some of the things that have been happening in Charlotte. Mr. Latanzio has been asking for 3 signings, and signing number 1 is on its way. Scott Arfield, the 34-year-old Canadian international, will sign a 2-year deal with Charlotte FC. Played for clubs like Huddersfield, Burnley in the Premier League. Just recently with Rangers. 661 appearances, 89 goals, 49 assists. One-time Scottish League winner, one-time Scottish Cup winner, 1 EFL championship winner, the only player on the CLT roster to score in a Champions League match. So this news was broken last week, right? From what I know, he's already in Charlotte. So if I've been upping my visits at Target to see if I can run into him. Unfortunately, I haven't. Maybe they told him that Target is where I hang out at, so they haven't sent them there. But I do know that man right now is currently in Charlotte, getting ready to sign. It'll be official. I don't know, sometime this week, early next week, right? But he will be a Charlotte signing. One of the things that stands out to me, Retirement FC, is just the recent amount of signings that we've had. I mean, obviously his age sticks out to me, but you know what? Like with signings like Merrim, with signings like Westwood that have come in and have added to this team, you know, I give this signing more of a benefit of the doubt than I did when we first signed Merrim, when we first signed Ashley Westwood. But that's the first thing that sticks out to me. Brian, talk to me about this signing. What sticks out to you?
Yeah, I think what Westwood saw that Messi was bringing all his friends to MLS, and he's like, I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna do my own recruiting, and so he brought in his former Burnley teammate in Arfield, and I feel like that's one of the things that sticks out to me right off the bat. Is another midfielder who's familiar with Westwood specifically, a veteran midfielder, and I think also just he's another guy that I think is going to help reduce the amount of turnovers, especially in our own half as we're trying to build up play. I think that's been one of the biggest issues with our midfield this year is just a lot of carelessness and a lot of wasted possession. And I think that's what this signing indicates is experience. Did I cut out there?
You're cutting off a little bit. You're kind of like Charlotte FC this season, in and out.
Am I back now?
You're good.
For the most part. But yeah, I think we caught most of that. David, is it concerning to you that Charlotte's signing so many older players, or is this a positive, giving, you know, experience, given all the drama that Charlotte has gone on this year, right? Is it a positive that we're looking? So one of the things too that I've talked to people about is the professionalism that Scott brings, right? So I think we see that in a guy like Merrim. We see that in a guy like Asher Westwood. And adding more of that into this locker room is good, given all the chaos that this team's been going through, right? But in age does always play a factor. We don't know how he will come into MLS.
That's very true, but I feel like we've seen it with the Merrim, we've seen it with Westwood. They bring that experience, they bring a level of composure, they bring a level of confidence to the game, and they also talk a lot in a different way that many of the young players don't do. They have their head on a swivel. They're always looking around them, always trying to see what's next. And that's something that you learn over time, not as soon as you get in the league. So I think this should definitely be a positive for us, even though one of the older players, you know what I mean? But I think we should definitely take this on a positive note because he could bring a lot to the team.
For sure. Awesome. So right now we give him more benefit of the doubt since the track record of some of the guys that Latanja's brought in recently. Voss, I want to hear from you, man. What do you make of Charlotte's season so far? I mean, obviously, you know, like it's no surprise, right? Just I feel like this club in the last 2 years has gone through crazy stuff, you know. I mean, we lost a player, right, due to death, right? I mean, 2 players are linked with a sexual assault case. Like, it's been a whirlwind for Charlotte, right? Just maybe your impression so far of this team.
Oh, man. So as an outsider looking in, I always have my eye on Charlotte because I have a special place in my heart for the team, you know? It's a great scene, it's a great team, and it's a great vibe around the team. But as for the on-field stuff, yeah, you can write a book in the 2 seasons that you guys have been around, you know, from having your inaugural head coach just pretty much saying that you guys are fucked from the beginning. Excuse my language. I'm sorry, but you know, like you couldn't set it up any better if it's like a drama on film. So I think recruitment wise, it's been all over the place up until you had a stable coach in Latanzio. And I do like the fact that he's bringing in more veterans as well, because it's very much a team and a fan base that wants to see results on the pitch right now. And with bringing in guys like a Justin Meram, Ashley Westwood, a Scott Arfield, you bring guys who can help lead, I think, what is a great youth system and youth academy that I think Crown Legacy could, as a prime example of how good the younger generation is in that city and in this team. So I think, just from an outsider looking in, it's been, I don't want to say completely bad, but it's great building blocks. And I think that's the most important thing in MLS in your early years, trying to establish something like an identity to try to build off of. And it's been something that, of course, you have a huge fan base that just wants to win now. Not everyone could be in LAFC or in Atlanta, not everyone's going to open up their pockets like that. But I do like the fact that Crown Legacy is doing very well. As someone who's like a Redbulls fan, I think that's a great thing to have. The young team that can be that bridge to connect the youth academy and that first team is the best way to try to build the roster and add pieces that can make it better. So on that aspect, amazing stuff. But again, trying to find fluidity because of the turmoil, because of a death, like you can't prepare a team for that, like that's a lot to take in. So I think people often forget the human element of the game, and these guys they're humans, like you can't always just flip a switch on and off like, oh, my teammate died, but I got a game next week. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy to think. And I often sometimes forget it too, but it's something that in hindsight is something that we all have to try to be a little more patient with. So should I give a grade? I want to say it'd be like a C plus, just because, Charlotte C is trying to keep it relevant.
You know what? If I had to grade the team, I think I would be with you right there, a C plus, like hasn't been great, but then like you also have to, like you nailed it with that. I like that. Nice. And
Thank you.
We'll get into Red Bulls here in a bit, right? And I want to hear your thoughts on the season. I mean, firing a coach, a lot. Y'all got a lot going on too. First, in today's press conference, Latanzio gave everybody a boost, right? A very big morale boost given, right, that we will be missing Taloma this weekend and we'll be missing our other DP, Carol Swiderski. Today in the press conference, we learned that we will have Enzo Copetti and Camille Yazviak back into this squad. Two DPs, two important players for the Crown, right? Specifically, Camille Yazviak, who's been killing it this season, 8 goals and assists in 11 appearances. He's missed a good amount of games because of injury as well, right? But, not only does this give us a morale boost, but it also gives a boost to this team, right? That, like, some of the things that we've been complaining the last couple of games is the lack of depth that there is in the squad. We've had to rely on guys like Ajiman, who's come in and scored. Brandon Cambridge has come in. A lot of these youngsters have done their thing, right? But at the end of the day, they're still youngsters, right? And Latanzio made it known in that press conference that he's like, young players are great, but we need 3 signings. The sky is nice, but we need 3 signings, right? So, David, I'll specifically start with you, man. How much of a boost is having Camille and Enzo back in that squad?
It's going to be huge for us because of the way that the Red Bulls play with that high compact press. Is going to be very important that Charlotte uses the wingers. Somebody like Camille that was in form coming back, that's big. So we need to utilize that. Our fullbacks need to do the same thing, creating those runs in behind, opening up space, especially in the middle, so Copetti can do his thing, make those runs, and hopefully get on the end of a couple crosses and beat the Red Bulls at home. Well, at their home.
Yes, for sure. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it actually just makes a huge impact for this game specifically because Red Bulls are going to be without Reyes, and then Token is also on international duty. So, like, those guys specifically would be defending Copetti and Uzviak in this situation. So I think it's a huge boost for Charlotte. Uzviak's going to be on that right-hand side where Token would be defending, and Copetti has got a backup center back now that he's going to be lined up against. So I think this game specifically is impacted more because of these players coming back, just because of the players Red Bulls are going to be missing. So it's like it's a really big reversal in terms of, I'd say, some of the roster momentum. So I think it's a huge impact for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think we'll see them right from the beginning, right? But I think they can come in and make an impact, right? And so also you saw that Latanzio likes to take his time bringing in players. We've seen that with Corujo. We've seen that with just other players in general. I definitely, if I'm a betting man, wink, wink, I say Corujo starts tomorrow. Wink, wink, a little MLS Corner exclusive right there for y'all. So for sure, for sure. Voss, talk to us about this Red Bull team. I mean, a team that finds it hard to get in the back of the net, right? A team that's fired a coach already. A team that's sitting, is it 11th in the league? I want to
12th. 12th.
12th in the
Yeah.
league. 12th in the league. What do you make of the Red Bull season so far?
Give me a sec. There's guys who are trying to rev me up. They're trying to rile me up. So give me a
Oh,
second.
is that an airplane behind you?
Yeah. So you guys want to talk
Unlike
about
my team, they're flying outside.
right? No, but you guys want to talk about an up and down season or Novella FC, guys. It's insane to think what it feels like. This 1/3 or halfway through the season, it's felt like 2 years have gone by. Like I've gotten a few more grays through having to deal with the whole Gerhard Struber situation. Like that in itself was crazy. Finding the back of the net is one of the biggest issues, and it's so evident, despite who is at the helm, trying to buy, strikers left and right, whether it's an Elias Manuel, Corey Burke, Dante Van Zier, trying to trust, Tom Barlow some more. We've really tried to up, the ante in terms of like the attacking options that this team can have. But the biggest thing that I think has affected them in terms of trying to score these goals is not having our entire lineup, our best lineup together for more than like a game or two. And when we have played, for the most part together, when guys like Lewis Morgan were healthy or Luquinhas, it seems to flow a little easier, and you tend to see a little more fluidity in terms of not just pressing, especially under Troy now. I think that's the biggest difference that I think has happened in the last 8 games, the first 9 games, I think, under Troy, is he's added like an extra wrinkle to the attack. It's not just we're going to go straight up pressing from the beginning whistle. There's a little more passing and movement. You see players running off the ball a little easier and trying to get into gaps. And it's even more evident to see a guy like Barlow, who's like a striker, now playing wing to try to adjust to how he can get involved with the game more. And again, he's a pretty big polarizing figure within the fan base because he can't score a goal even though he's a striker. But I think overall the season, man, they should be better. I think if you asked anyone where would the Red Bulls be at this point in the year, it would not be 12th after all the money that they spent. After I remember media day itself, everything felt positive, good vibes, and I myself was like, this seems a little too good to be true. And not that I was wishing malice on the team or anything, but it's just crazy to see how it's all turned out, whether it's the fan base walking out, for a few games, or the fact that we had a good Open Cup run, but it didn't really go anywhere after that, or just the constant changing of the lineup. You don't really see like the same starting 11 week in, week out. So I think that's also been a very big issue in terms of trying to get some points, whether it's on the road or at home. And of course, how can I not even mention that? The home record is abysmal. Geez, like that's the one thing that it's been a staple of the Red Bulls, that they were always dominant at home the first 10, 11 years of Red Bull Arena being open. But the last 3 under Gerhard has been pretty grim, to put it lightly. But I think to quote a friend of the show, the podcast, Troy's the process. I think a lot of guys have trust in Troy right now. He just brought in his assistant who was working under him in New Mexico United in the USL, and he also had a good run of form with that team at the helm of the head coaching position, and great little US Open Cup run the past few years. So I think from just hearing the press conference this morning, someone like Drew Yearwood, who's in and out of the lineup under Gerhard, talk about how united the team feels now, especially with Zach Prince, the new assistant coach, coming on. That's probably been the biggest news since you guys had a 1 week bye. I think the Red Bulls had a 2 week bye. So I think that's the biggest news that we've had bringing in Zach Prince. And from what I'm hearing from the players, they're all feeling really good about this team right now. Despite, losing 3-0 in our last game against Orlando, the team was playing probably 2 games for about like 2 months every week. So it was pretty crazy to see what the U.S. Open Cup and regular season schedule built up, because they just looked gassed that last game. So this 2-week bye was much needed. I'm expecting a crazy game against Charlotte tomorrow.
Sure. Sounds like similar situation with Charlotte in terms of a lot of games coming quick and fast. And you guys have had drama yourselves too with the whole Vanzier situation, right? How do you think that's affected this team?
Oh, initially, yeah, you can really tell like it was pretty split, and not just you felt it even within like the media. It was just kind of weird, because I remember I went to the away trip for the Charlotte match March 25th, and I met Gerhard because I was the only away media, so I got to meet him formally, and I've never had a bad interaction with the guy, but I think a week later the whole incident happened. 2 weeks later the incident happened, so it's strange to see how, me personally, I've never had anything bad to say about the guy other than just his lack of competence on the coaching field. But then that whole situation unfolded, and I'm like, damn, dude, it's kind of weird to try to defend this guy at this point, like not only is he not delivering on the field, but now he's just like tearing apart the fan base, which is like well established, and being completely open, and you trying to have everyone involved, and no hate speech. It's just crazy to think that he was just going against the actual principles of all these supporters groups, which were all founded in '96. Like that was one of like the staples. So not even '96. The ESC predates the league since 1995. So certain principles that he was going against really rubbed the fan base the wrong way. So I think that didn't only affect the fans and the attendance numbers, but you had like the team just playing maybe like a good. That was the trope of the season. Good 35 minutes, then they can't score a goal. They concede late in the half. And then just you could feel how low the mood was, and Gerhard simply couldn't just motivate these guys. So I think a fresh face was much needed. Whether or not that Vanzier situation happened, I think Gerhard was on the hot seat because of what he wasn't producing on the field. So I think that just helped escalate everything that was already happening for about 2 years under this head coach.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, lot's been going on in the Red. It's funny, like with the teams that we don't keep up with, we definitely know all the drama once it comes out, because that tends to.
Oh man, one of the craziest things. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jorge. I remember one of the clips that didn't even make it to like a quote sheet or a video. Gerhard literally had to verbatim said all my white boys and my black boys. And everyone was like, wait, like we have like 2 African-American reporters within the journalism circles. And I think Gary Redmond, everyone just turned to Gary Redmond. Like Mario Gomez was there and he said this. It was crazy. Like Gomez came to try to see what was happening a week or 2 after. And he goes and drops that line. And we were like just baffled. Like, damn, is that going to make Apple TV? Like what the hell just happened? So yeah, to give you an example of the disconnect between head coach and just like cultural philosophies and just locker room, I think it's pretty, not even etiquette, but just, I don't even know. Yeah, it's just crazy to think how disconnected it was to the team and New York itself,
Yeah, for sure, especially like a city like New York, which is interesting. Brian, one of the worst attacks in the league versus one of the worst defenses in the league, right? Like Voss mentioned, one of the worst home records as well, right? What can we expect from this game?
Yeah, I have no clue. It's wild how this game has come together at this point because of, like you said, New York's only scored, I think, 11 goals so far this year. Charlotte have allowed 33, but then Charlotte have been able to get goals. But then Charlotte are missing a couple of their main attacking, pretty much their main attacking piece at this point in Karol Swiderski. But then New York, who've been having to count on their defense a lot, are missing 2 of their key defenders. So like I have honestly no clue what to expect. So it's like a weird. I feel like there's just going to be like, it's just like a weird tension to this game in terms of just not knowing what to expect, and then which bad situation breaks first, like because like that's kind of where this game is at. Is like can New York find a way to get some goals? Because you'd imagine New York having Charlotte come in is like, all right, this is a team that we can break down and has been struggling to and allowing a lot of cheap goals. This is maybe the game that we can get our momentum in. And then for Charlotte, they've got to be going into this game thinking like, all right, cool. If we can get Carujo back into the lineup, things like that, maybe we can get our defense some momentum because New York can't score goals. And so like, it just seems like a matchup where both teams are really eyeing this as an opportunity for them to get results, not necessarily because they're in the strongest form, but because they're coming up against an opponent who is really struggling in some areas where they could use some help in. I think that's really where this game comes down to.
For sure. Great points there. David, any players that stick out to you that could, maybe unlock Charlotte FC in this game? We know Redbulls likes to play that press, likes to be bullies on the field, right? Any certain player that stands out to you?
I feel like if Copetti coming back, this is his game to shine. Like, he's got to be the one. He's that presence. He's that bully at the top. He's got to know how to hold the ball, how to pass the ball out wide. It's going to be very important for Copetti to do that this weekend. Also, it's going to be interesting to see what Charlotte does in the midfield. We don't have Swiderski. We don't have Derek Jones. So it's gonna be interesting to see what we do in that midfield. And hopefully we do get Corujo back so we get a level of confidence in the back, some composure, some stability. So it'd be interesting to see what Charlotte does against the Red Bulls.
For sure. Interesting. For sure. Voss, I want to talk to you also about what are you expecting from this Red Bulls team against Charlotte? I mean, you guys are missing key guys like Reyes, you're missing Tolkien, right? Like what are you expecting to see tomorrow?
Okay, so one of the staples of the season has been the absences, and something that the Red Bulls have done really good is plug in when they've needed, whether it was a player like Cameron Harper, who's traditionally a right winger or a right midfielder, being a right wing back, replacing someone like a Kyle Duncan, just in that spot, and Dylan Nealis as well. I'm sorry, who's we thought we were going to be thin at that right back spot, but Cameron Harper ended up being a revelation, and he could even slide in at the left wing back spot. So I think with Tolkien being out this week or for the next few games with the Gold Cup, as well as Corey Burke. Corey Burke's a huge, even though he doesn't get on the score sheet as much, he offers a lot as an offensive presence to just bother the opposing defenses and just be a nuisance, whether it's trying to, because he got really quick feet for a big guy, and the fact that he's big as well. People underestimate how skillful Corey Burke tends to be with and without the ball, whether he's holding it off and trying to get more people involved. That was like one thing that I think he improved on that Tolkien, that Barlow couldn't really do when he was playing that same position. But yeah, I think they're going to be expecting a team that is 3 points ahead of them in the league. And of course, you want to get 3 points every week, especially at home. But I think they're going to be extra motivated with the 2 weeks off. And despite all the missing pieces, whether it's JMI, Tolkien is like a huge piece. Like, if he stays with us another year, that'd be a surprise. And you could say the same thing with like Aceves Jr. or maybe, who knows, if Lewis Morgan ends up being another MVP kind of season, he ends up going back to Europe because he has those kinds of ambitions to play for Scotland. But yeah, I'm expecting a team to try to line up to get the game from the start. They're going to just try to, like you said, be bullies. Last time they played on the 25th of March, there was a combined 37 fouls. That's pretty crazy. So I'm expecting a very chippy game, but I'm not expecting one to have a whole lot of goals. Red Bull's strengths have been scoring off of set pieces, so maybe we get a goal off a set piece, but I'm expecting the team to come out from the start, and if they can't score early on or past that halftime, that creeping, lingering, doubt of, is it going to be another loss at home? Is it going to be another draw at home? That pressure really starts weighing the team down, and it's very evident after past that 50-minute mark. So I'm not sure. I think you guys mentioned that Josuak was coming back as well as Capetti. So those are two big pieces that the Red Bulls got to prepare for, especially with a JMI, Tolkien not being there. But I think they start right back Kyle Duncan and the left wing back Cameron Harper, because he's a beast, man. And he was on the end of pretty bad fouls in that March 25th game,
Yeah, Yeah.
So I remember like the only reason why people remembered I was a Red Bulls fan is because as soon as I saw that through my lens on the camera, I like threw my arms. I was like, "How's that not a red?" And like a family behind me was like, "Wait, you're a Red Bulls fan?" And I'm like, you know.
Nice. Brian, I want to touch with you. Well, before that, Voss, I know you mentioned like that doubt starts creeping in for you guys. Bro, the doubt creeps in for us the whole 92 because at any second, I feel like anybody in the Charlotte FC squad can make a freaking Sunday league mistake. And we've seen it time and time again this season. So when we feel like we got things under control, Charlotte does something and it's like, uh-oh. So I mean, it'll be interesting on both sides, seeing how this match plays out. Brian, I want to touch on Karol Swiderski a little bit. You know, we'll be missing him tomorrow. He's with Poland. They lost today. Did he play at all? I know he didn't play last game. I don't know if he got any minutes today or not.
Actually, I didn't check that. I haven't checked that yet.
If anybody in the comments section can check on that.
Yeah, send that for us.
How important is it going to be missing a guy like him, arguably one of the best players in our team, right? In my opinion, the most technical guy we have, right? How important does he become missing him and his presence tomorrow against the Red Bulls?
I mean, I think it's huge, especially because I think he's also coming into form. Like some of the plays he's made, just the spectacular plays and highlights he's had have just been you can't like that's literally not on the roster besides him. Like you don't get that assist to Lindsay unless Carol's on the team. So there's certain plays and just attributes that he brings that are no longer going to be really capable of the roster's not capable of them without him. So I think that aspect is going to be missing. Now I do think there's some interesting intangibles again for this game. Ben Bender is another interesting piece because I mean with Carol out, depending on how Lattanzio lines up that midfield, I think Bender could be an option. He's been an option in these situations before, and Bender also likes to play against New York. He scored against New York last time. It was Lattanzio's first game, and this is the kind of team that Bender likes to play against. A team that with because of that pressure, he finds space in behind, and that's what he does best. So I think that's an interesting intangible. Can Lattanzio find the right pieces to sort of supplant what Carol is going to be? Carol's absence is going to be missing, and can they find alternatives to that? So I think that's really the key to this game is like, can you find a presence that you can bring to this game with Carol being gone? I think Bender could be one of those solutions potentially. I know Lattanzio has been asking about experience and wanting experience, but I think Bender's been hungry this year in the limited role he's had. Like I've honestly been impressed with how he's played when he's gotten his opportunity. He's taken it.
For sure. You're right. I mean, we'll see tomorrow, right? The Yeti clan. I'm guessing that's Brian said that he came in the 71st minute. So that's good, right? And I'm going to throw this question on both David and Voss as well. But I'll start off with you, David, right? I mean, Charlotte currently sit 10th in the table, right? You know, how important is it? I feel like these next two games for Charlotte are winnable games, right? So, David, how important is it to get results tomorrow and Saturday, given that currently we sit 10th in the league?
It's very important because now it's time to start cementing our spot in the playoffs because we don't want to be one of them tails that make it with smoke on our tails. You know what I mean? We need to be getting those wins. We need points under our belts. So it's definitely huge. If we make a statement against the Red Bulls tomorrow, showing that if we have our DP out, Karol Swiderski get a win, and then we go and against Montreal, who's definitely a winnable game in my opinion, and we dominate them, then that'll be huge going on to the next few games for Charlotte.
For sure, and New York also. We play
absolutely
NYCFC.
We don't lose against NYCFC.
That's true. 3 wins on the bounce against NYCFC. So
it's a real sorry to cut you in. This is a really pivotal stretch. I mean, so Charlotte are 10th, New York is 12th, Montreal is 9th, and NYCFC is 11th. So it's like they're all right there in the same bunch. So like these points matter a little bit more because it either jumps you ahead of this group or it keeps you with this group or it can knock you beneath this group. So this next stretch of 3 games is like really, really pivotal, I think, for the next stretch of this season for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's last year's. That's where we failed. There was
Yep.
key games that were winnable games that Charlotte didn't win. Then they had to race against, the table, and they came up short just barely, right? So you're right. That's a good point, right? 9th through 12th, all these teams, right? You get. I forget who always says this, but in MLS, you're 3 wins away from being right back in it, right? So these are definitely games that you can win. And I'll throw that to you, Voss, right? How important does it become for Red Bulls to win tomorrow, too? Because, I mean, if I'm a Red Bulls fan looking at Charlotte FC, I'm like, that's definitely a winnable game at home as well.
Yeah, you guys think that your 3 points are important. These guys are I feel like they're in the same boat, Both teams are just like within that last wild card spot, like someone just mentioned. It feels like they're fighting for these wild card spots at the end of the day. And honestly, the MLS is such a tricky league that you got to look at it in 5-game stretches, in my opinion, because anything could really happen. If you just focus on your next 5 games, usually I think things could go very well. But for the Red Bulls in particular, their next 4 are at home and 2 are against 2 teams that are just ahead of them in that playoff spot. Because we got you guys who are right below us, and then we got Atlanta, who's currently in 6th, that we're also hosting. We have a great record against. So I think it's 2 teams that the fan base and the team themselves, as of how the last few results have gone against both those sides, are expecting to get 6 points in the last 2 games before they go to play the Crew away. So I think they're very much important points because it's those teams that are right below you that you have to get 3 points against. When it's those head-to-head matches, it's what really determines at the end of the season who just misses out by 1 point or because of a head-to-head record, because of who scored more goals, So these are the really important matches that both teams, I know, have that thought, like, we need to get the win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, great points all around, right? So yeah, I think how much pressure do you think Latanja goes into if, say, he doesn't get these results in the next 2 games? Brian?
I mean, I guess we've kind of gone up and down this road in terms of just like the poor stretches and the good swings and back and forth. I definitely think it would be an opportunity lost more than anything, and just being like really, this was the opportunity to really kind of slam the door on like the question mark of where Charlotte FC is at this season. Because again, if they come away with like 6 or 7 points, I mean, they're probably sitting 7th, 6th, 7th. And at that point, probably at least a few points in gap between them and 9th or 10th. I feel like what happens constantly is Charlotte will bounce to 6th or 7th, fall to 13th, and we're kind of jumping around constantly. Like, where is this team at? I think that's what this stretch can really be, is be like, no, this team is definitely like not just fighting for a playoff spot, but can cement sort of like the final stretch and being like, this is where we can kind of decide where we are on the table. Or if they come up short, then it's like, man, we're either at the same point or we've lost a really good opportunity. Now we're depending on a summer signing to try to just make up ground. And I think those are all the big issues coming in, like, if they fall short, and then we have to rely on Latanzio saying we need those 3 signings. That's what this whole thing is about, right? I mean, it's either like right now it's about the points. It's not about the signings. It's about getting these points, and like this team is capable of doing it. They've got to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it becomes pivotal too, right? Yep. If you're able to get results against Red Bulls, against Montreal, against New York,
yep.
The window opens July 5th, right? You add Arfield, right? Right from the get-go, right? And you're able to bring in, I know they're closing in on a player in the back line as well, so we'll see how that translates here soon, right? I mean, you pick up the points, right? And you're right there in it, and you add to this team, right? You start looking like, okay, this team has a real shot of making the playoffs, right? And the beauty about MLS too is like, it's not that difficult to make playoffs, right? If 9 out of 15, 9 out of 14 teams are qualifying now, and we're doing this best out of 3 series, the reality is that you can go all the way to the end right, and still have a fighting chance, which I think is great, right? You look at Miami, they're dead last right now, but like everybody's hyped because they're adding Barcelona from 2015 to this squad, right? One of the things I also wanted to mention that somebody brought up was where is it? Should Vinny Mello be brought up to the first team? You know, we saw him this weekend against Red Bulls 2, actually, right? Scored the last minute winner for them, right? Took them to MLS Next Pro penalty shootouts, which is, you know, an interesting rule where you get an extra point, right? And you've seen the impact of him. In my opinion, given the lack of options we've had at that 9 role, it's a guy that Latanzio needs to bring back. And so I didn't get a chance to ask him that today, but that was something definitely I wanted to bring up. Was, you know, what parameters does this man still need to meet for you to bring him back into the squad? They obviously rate him. They obviously have it's a mixture of everything for me. He's a good player, he's scoring, and we need another striker. Right? So I guess it's more of a thought, Brian, you know, from what you've seen from Vinny Mello, it's a guy that we can count on.
Yeah, he brought in a ton of excitement with his debut. I think it was against New York. It was against the Redbulls. I mean, because he helped set up the own goal for Vargas getting the own goal. And that was his debut. Tons of excitement with him. And then sort of like the setback. And I feel like it really, if they feel like it's a move to bring him back would be a boost. I think, he technically and like what he provides, his skill set, very unique. The thing is, Latanzio operates this team on his own set of rules, and he has the whole time. And it's just something I think have to just learn to expect. If there's a set of parameters that Latanzio has that he's saying like this, look, he's not meeting it yet, or maybe he even, regardless of whether or not he's meeting them, maybe Latanzio had just set a set period of time, like, hey, this is how you fell short. Now it requires you to be at Crown Legacy CFC for X amount of time. Maybe he said, I want you there for 2-3 months just to really take that experience in or something like, there's a variety of different reasons as to what Latanzio's strategy was with him. I think the biggest thing overall is just with all of these players, whether they're coming back from injury, whether they're kind of getting set back. Hamadi Diop has kind of had a similar situation come up. It seems like regardless, Latanzio is extremely patient. And like once you kind of either slip or if you're injured or whatever the case may be, he takes his time letting you back in. that opportunity. But I think also that might have a plus side to it as well. Like I'm thinking Jalen Lindsay, he kind of lost momentum last year and has looked like one of our sharpest fullbacks because he's taken that opportunity, knowing maybe if I don't take it now, I might not get another opportunity for 2 months. And so they kind of maybe come back in and really jump on it. So, there might be a plus side at the end of this road in terms of Mello when he does get that opportunity again, really not willing to let it go.
For sure. I want to answer this real quickly. He's technically part of the Charlotte FC squad, so he can go down to Crown Legacy as many times as he wants.
Yeah.
Right. To answer Vaughn's question, we are looking at trade options within the league. I think from what I'm hearing, right, that we should hear something about what's going to happen with Nuno Santos in the next 2 weeks. So that's a story to definitely keep an eye out on as well, right? A player that Charlotte wants to move on. We know that he wants to move on as well, right? So I think that's going to be real key to some of the things that they're looking at in terms of player options for Charlotte FC. So it's going to be a very, very interesting window that's gonna come, that's about to pop up. So one of the things that the club talked to us about going into the winter transfer window was bringing players in that could upgrade this team, and we've seen that with Westwood, right? We've seen that with, I guess to a degree, Merrim, right? Even though he came in a little bit later. Right. But we're still lacking in that defensive line. Right. So hopefully we start seeing a improved Corujo, because to be honest, we don't know what kind of Corujo we're going to get back. right? And so he's coming off of a very long period of not playing, and so it should be interesting what happens. I want to move on and talk a little bit also about before I do that, Voss, any parting thoughts in terms of Red Bulls and this game tomorrow?
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention was in regards to just players who are on a 2 team who get called up to the first team, you could only ask a player X amount of times to be called up to that first team, because the Red Bulls media were asking about Avante Mullings possibly being called back up to the first team since he's a Red Bulls 2 player who's been showing very well. But I think they've exhausted the amount of times that they've actually been able to call him up. So that was actually an interesting tidbit that I hadn't really known about up until today. And yeah, no, just I think Vinicius Melo has just been very unfortunate from an outsider looking in, because I remember that debut that he had forcing that own goal, and just his play with the second team does warrant, in my opinion, some game time at least. Maybe he doesn't start, but at least have him on the bench, like have a different option. But that's my departing thought on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely more of a him and Latanzio thing versus a quality thing from what we know, right? So hopefully, though, he's realizing that we need it, right? I mean, like, kudos to Latanzio to sticking to, like, what his system and whether we have the players or not, or his philosophy of the game, but also, right, like, games are coming, right? We're starting to need more and more points, right? So it'll be interesting what happens in these next couple of weeks, right? And so I'm very curious to see some new additions to this squad as well, right? Let's talk a little bit about Montreal as well, right? They're coming into Charlotte Saturday, right? And so a team that to be honest, I projected them to be dead last right now. They're surviving. They're doing a couple good things, right? I mean, my Honduran player that's there, Kyoto, he's going through it as well with an injury. It looks like he may not be back with the team as well. But having said all of that, they're ahead of us in the league. We're playing at home, finally back at the bank. Brian, what are you expecting from this game?
I mean, I'm expecting Charlotte to get 3 points. Like they have to get 3 points at home against Montreal. I mean, Montreal is one win, 8 loss, 1 draw on the road. I mean, there's just no room for error in this game. Charlotte have to get it done, and that, I mean, honestly, in a dominant fashion. I mean, Montreal's going to be missing, like you said, Kyoto. I think Piet is still out as well. At least he was in the last report that came out before the last game, so we'll kind of have to keep an eye on that. But they're just a shadow of themselves compared to what they were last year. They're still trying to figure out how to replace all the signings that left. Obviously, I think they got a lot of heat for that trade they made in terms of, like, literally paying Miami to take their starting center back and Kamal Miller. They paid them more gam to then take him. I mean, obviously, they got Bryce Dugan last year, who have honestly helped out a lot in their midfield and their attack, like Bryce Dugan last year. So props to them, but on the surface, that trade, they got completely roasted for it. And I think it's just a matter of them needing the time to kind of figure out how all their pieces fit back in after letting go of so many key pieces. Charlotte need to take advantage of that, because even though I think Charlotte in some ways have kind of struggled to kind of get their groove, they know who their key pieces are, and they know how to get sort of their best results out of those key players. And so they've just got to get it done. Like, there's just no, for me, that's the minimum expectation is 3 points.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, David, we talk about Red Bulls being a winnable game. Montreal is a must-win game, correct?
Absolutely, because I don't see us losing this game, and if we do lose this game, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. Because looking at the schedule that Montreal has coming up, they play Nashville next. That's a game that you expect them to lose pretty badly, especially with the form that Nashville's in. So
yeah, I think it's 10 games unbeaten for them.
Exactly.
Right now.
So
I mean, they're flying high, right? I mean, kudos to Nashville. Ever since they came in the league, consistently top 5 team, East or West, right? St. Louis doing something similar their first season, right? And good old Charlotte FC struggled their second season, right? Voss, anything you want to add to maybe Montreal and this team or Charlotte playing at home?
Okay, I feel like everybody is having a target on Montreal's back if you're anyone outside of the playoff spot. So the team hasn't really looked all that well in their last 5. I think they beat Inter Miami. I think the last one was against Minnesota, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah, they won 4-0 that game.
Yeah, 4-0 it's a big win, but I remember their turning point of the season was actually against the Red Bulls at home, funny enough. So I've seen the team like go from like the depths of where they were at to having that resurgence, but I've never liked Heron Losada as a head coach really from his DC time. I never had faith in how he managed the team, and his man management in general was very questionable from reports that had come out of that camp. From what I remember, it was kind of a shit show, to put it lightly. And with the amount of turnover that they had, Mihailovic, Kai Kamara, big guys just departing the team, I also was expecting them to have that last place finish. But going into that game against Charlotte, I do not expect them to get anything out of that Nashville game. They're going to try to be motivated to get a win. But who can I see as a difference maker outside of Ariel Lassiter? Or, maybe Wanyama is like 100 years old, so I think it's a pretty winnable game for you guys at this point. After, are you guys hosting them? Yeah, you are. So yeah, I don't think they have a great road record either. So that's a pretty winnable game. That's a very, very winnable game. And the fact they brought in a Panathinaikos player in Yannis Iliadis, I set them up for failure, bro. Shout out to Olympiacos,
Nice. This is something that's very true, which is why I'm always quietly optimistic about Charlotte FC. We tend to fumble the bag. Games that we can win, games that are there for the taking, right? We tend to somehow screw it, right? Like RSL away is the perfect example of a game that annoyed me the most, right? That one in St. Louis. St. Louis is my that was probably the worst game of the season for me so far. Right? Hopefully we don't have another one of those sessions again. But with that said, I want to ask you guys, let's go into a little bit about some score predictions. And I'll start off with David from the Yeti clan.
All right.
Start off with Red Bulls.
All right. My prediction against the Red Bulls, I'm going to say we win 2-1.
2-1. Okay, we go to Red Bull Arena, win 2-1. Who's scoring the goals for you?
I'm going to say Copetti gets one.
Nice.
And let's say Westwood gets another one.
Okay, Captain Westwood, Ashley Westwood. Hopefully somebody takes him some tea again. So we'll see. Somebody brought him some tea at the Atlanta game. So
for real. How'd they get that in? Was that the media team or was that a fan?
That was a fan, he said.
How'd they get that in?
No, we asked him that at a press conference. I forgot which press conference we asked him that at. And he was like, yeah, this is my favorite tea too.
That's awesome.
Crazy, right? Brian?
Yeah, for New York, the New York Red Bulls match, I think Charlotte are going to be able to find goals. I'm just not super confident in them being able to prevent New York from scoring, even though New York's offensive production has been poor. I think this is a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Who scores it for you?
I think Uzviak gets one, and I'm gonna go Westwood back-to-back games.
Okay.
Back-to-back bangers.
Nice.
I dig.
Voss, my man, what are you expecting from this game?
Oh, man, I'm expecting more red cards than goals between these two sides. I think someone mentioned one red card way earlier in the chat. But, yeah, I'm expecting more either red or yellow cards than anything. But I could see a 1-0 win off of a Luquinha's goal because he had a great solo effort that was a Tom Barlow tap-in, but he took on the entire team on that last goal that the Red Bulls had scored and ended up just hitting it off the post, and Barlow just banged it into the net. And yeah, I think 1-0 off of a Luki goal because Van Zier, although he's going to start, can only score off of a volley. If you try to get him to shoot directly at goal, it's like a miss hit, but off the volley is the only thing he got.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think it'll be a 2-2 draw. So we'll see what happens, right? I think Ben Bender will get on the score sheets tomorrow, right? And then I can see Enzo coming off the bench and drawing it for Charlotte FC. Hopefully that gets him a little. That takes some of the heat that he's been receiving recently. So we'll see. How about the Montreal game? I'll start off with you, boss. What are you expecting? Do you think Charlotte can win that game?
I think you guys could definitely win that game, but as someone who's right below, that threshold of where you guys are standing, I'm expecting a draw. I'm hoping for a draw more than anything. So 1-1, that it benefits the Red Bulls a little more. But no. In all honesty, I think if they play their cards right at home, they come out 2-0 winners.
2-0 winners. Nice. I like that. Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think this has got to be a dominant performance. I think that's what we're going to see. I'm expecting a few goals, at least from Charlotte. I'm thinking 2-0. 2-0 against Montreal. I think this is going to be an opportunity for them to keep a clean sheet, which I think is also important for them, especially to start doing that at home. And I think while they might struggle against New York on the road, I think we're going to be able to lock it down after a couple of weeks with Carujo, hopefully in the back line for a couple of games, not a couple of weeks, sorry, a couple of games. And so I think we're going to get 2-0 win.
Nice. Anyone in particular score?
Yeah, let's roll with Capetti for that one. I think Capetti brace.
Nice. Another brace for Mr. Copetti.
Yeah.
Mr. David, what are you expecting against Montreal?
Well, I'm the same thing as Brian. I'm expecting a dominant performance, and I want to keep this clean sheet mentality going. So I'm gonna say 3-0. I want 3-0. I want 3 at home. Hopefully 4, but I definitely want it to be a clean sheet. It's time to get a clean sheet.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-1 on that game. I think Merrim scores. I think we see Yazviak double for the first time for the crown. And so 3-1 win against Montreal. Like Vaughn said, scores aside, a minimum against these two teams should be 4 points for Charlotte FC, right? And hopefully we get that and we stick within those playoff spots, right? With that said, it's been a great show tonight. Brian, my man, where can I find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Bam Mauer Media. You can also find all my written content at topbin90.com. Shout out to Jake. He just posted a new article today about ticket prices and comparing them to how teams are performing in the standings. So check that out. Also got a watch along happening tomorrow during the MLS during the games at 7:30 for dropping points in my MLS fantasy show with Blake Eshelman from MLS Gone Wild. So we're doing a watch along for that since it's a double game week. So if you're a fan of MLS fantasy, come hang out with us. We're going to be talking MLS fantasy as we watch the games.
I love it. Mr. Palma, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Instagram and on YouTube at CLTFC Yeti Clan. We'll have a drop vlogging for y'all tomorrow morning. Yeah, I like that comment right there. But yeah, we'll have a vlog for y'all tomorrow, so that way y'all have something to watch during the day to get you ready for the game in the afternoon against the Red Bulls. And we're just excited, ready to be back at the bank the following weekend.
Nice. Mr. Voss, it's been wonderful having you on. Just a wealth of knowledge. MLS vet, a Metro Stars legend. You
already know, Guevara days.
Yeah. Where can we find you at?
If you want to yell at me personally, you could find me at Board Astorian 94, Board Astorian 94 at Twitter. But you could find me and my 3 co-hosts covering both sides of the New York soccer scene between NYCFC and the New York Red Bulls at the Soccer Subs podcast on Instagram and Twitter, or Soccer Subs Radio. I'm sorry, Soccer Subs Radio on Twitter, Soccer Subs podcast on Instagram or TikTok. So looking forward to covering the game tomorrow. I'll be doing pre and post match fan content as well as the press conference. So if you guys want to keep an eye on that on the socials, we'll be updating it as the game goes on.
For sure. And with that said, Jorge Gonzalez, Top Bin 90 on all the socials, right? We've got some great stuff coming for you cooking. We got a watch party tomorrow too at Graham Street Pub. Make sure you pull up. right? We'll have a good time, right? And hopefully we get to celebrate a win. We'll also be doing post-match interviews. So if you're angry, you're happy, come on and say your 2 cents, right? With that said, everybody have a great night. Thank you for watching another episode of MLS Corner. Good.